here. Thanks for tuning in to KDUN Radio. I am in the studio with Superintendent of Reedsport Schools, John Zwemke, and it's been quite a week, hasn't it?
This has been a very unusual week. Lots going on, and we might just take it in order.
Okay.
The Monday having no school,
President's Day.
President's Day pushed it the 4-day week, so this would be a typical Tuesday through Friday week on how Reedsport operates. Tuesday, if you've been watching the news and have students in school, just generally aware, we had a lockdown happen at Reedsport, but it was also a lockdown for the every school district in Douglas County. We know now, or the report now, is that there was somebody, I guess, driving I-5 with a phone, and every time they got to a new county and approached a new area, they were calling in saying, you need to go into lockdown, you need to go into lockdown.
All different schools.
All different schools, and it started down in Ashland, and they worked their way north towards Portland. So the assumption is they're on I-5. OSP, the Oregon State Police, kind of determined that after multiple hours of this and paying attention to the various call centers. But in the moment, whenever a school is told you have to go into lockdown, we respond immediately. We never assume that there's anything other than an absolute dire emergency, and we lock down. 2 times a year in Reedsport, we practice this with our students and our staff so that we can do it efficiently. So whenever we hear lockdown, it's immediate, everybody does it, and it's a full commitment. From going into lockdown, then we start paying attention, listening, and working backwards. The working backwards is to the point where can we be open? And in the case of Tuesday, it took almost an hour and a half to get to a point where we were able to open the doors again. So let's kind of run through all the things that happened on Tuesday. We had a law enforcement activity scheduled for Tuesday, so we were very fortunate that we had 4 agencies in the Reedsport School District for a training when the call came in for a lockdown. That was only sheer luck.
Wow.
On a normal day, the local Reedsport Police Department were probably the only agency that we would have access to, maybe Douglas County Sheriff's Department if we're lucky, but on Tuesday, just sheer luck, we had the Coos Parole Probation officers, the Coos Police Department officers, the Coos Lower Umpqua Siuslaw Tribal Police, along with Douglas County Sheriff and Reedsport Police. So
the timing on that is incredible.
I mean, the stroke of luck of having so many agencies able to assist us in a lockdown was amazing. And huge thank you to those departments, to those officers. Very timely. I'm glad everybody was safe. I'm glad that nothing happened, but I'm very thankful that we had that type of response. So because we had the activity scheduled and officers were there paying attention to their scanner, we learned that, or the officers learned that Douglas County was going into lockdown. All 13 school districts in Douglas County, that's Roseburg to Camas Valley to Reedsport on the coast. And that's a huge call. Usually they're more localized, usually it's a single school district, so for a call of that size to go out, that's a big deal. And every superintendent hearing that call is immediately on notice that this is a big problem. We spent the first about 13 minutes of that activity, of that event, in pitch black, lockdown, administrators trying to bar down doors as quickly as they could with the help of police officers. And from that point, working with police, listening, looking, observing, listening to scanner information, we're realizing there's no active activity in Reedsport. There's nobody on our perimeter, there's nobody in our buildings. From those points, stepping backwards, you start to look at things, okay, we're gonna turn the lights on. If you're a kindergarten student sitting in the dark for 13 minutes with your teacher who is doing her absolute best to keep keep the classroom calm is still a very nervous activity, a lot of anxiety, a lot of things are kind of going on in young kids' heads. Same at the high school. So getting the lights back on just so that we're
it feels a little bit normal.
yeah,
I mean,
just a step towards normal. Yeah.
right.
The next 30 minutes, though, the students were still locked in rooms because we were waiting for information from Douglas County Sheriff about who has to be locked down, what's the threat, what's the specifics we need to be aware of. If you can imagine the Douglas County Sheriff's Department being one single entity, they're getting calls from 13 communities, 13 sets of police departments, 13 sets of school districts. They were probably completely overwhelmed, and I learned after the fact that they were putting out Facebook posts about please stay calm, let us do our job. You're flooding us with questions, and we need to work. So getting a response out here in Reedsport was not very fast. Students spent about 30 minutes in the lockdown. After about 30 minutes, we were told that the Douglas County Sheriff Department was going to begin clearing school districts one by one, which immediately leads to a little bit of fear that we are so far over here to the west that it's going to take them quite a while to get through the county over here to us. And at that point, we knew we had to kind of settle in for what was going to be a longer time period. At that point, without an immediate threat and the information that they were going to start clearing schools, we moved into more of a modified version of our lockdown. At that point, we do not open the doors to the outside, and all students stay in the building. Anybody trying to get in is not allowed in. It's you're locked in, you're locked out. But we try to resume school activity to the extent that we can. So teachers will go try some lessons, and students will go to their classes. Lunch can be served. The bathrooms are available because, again, trying to get towards normal.
Yeah. So my question is, how does info go out? Like, for instance, I'm assuming that parents were trying to contact people at the school there. Like, how do they do that?
Yeah. In a lockdown situation, all staff are basically bunkered. The administrators are moving to try to close doors. Everybody else is shelter in place. So we're not answering any phones. We're not sitting at a computer putting out information. It's an immediate closure and shutdown. So the ability to put something on Facebook at that point doesn't exist, or to put out a robodialer does not exist. Lockdown is immediate. It's done for the immediate safety of everybody, and you deal with communication once you're able to start working backwards.
Gotcha. And so, for instance, is it part of the drill, or not the drill, but the procedure when you go into lockdown that students that have phones need to shut them off so they don't ring during, the silence?
We want that. We try to train that. There's 600
exactly.
kids. You probably don't have that perfected,
but you do address that, yeah.
Teachers try to say, hey, we need to be quiet, silence, and
Gotcha.
to the best that we can. So information gets out because of those cell phones. When we start working backwards,
not always the correct information.
And that's really hard, because the first person to send out inaccurate information causes confusion.
Sure.
If they put it on social media and other people see inaccurate information, more confusion. So when you're looking for information, which sources? The school district is the best source of what is happening in the school district. The Douglas County Sheriff was giving reports, but they only had one officer in our building, and most of their activity was confined over there to I-5 and Roseburg, so they weren't really boots on the ground what's happening here, although what they're saying about their directions is pretty accurate, because they know what they're saying. So looking for information during a lockdown is tricky. We're going to try to get something out immediately on Facebook. When our secretaries can get up from under their desks to be at a computer, a Facebook post is probably the fastest thing for us to get out. Robodialers and emails take time to set up and generate. it'd be nice if you could just push one big red button and the entire community knew what was going on, but every time you have to customize it. So
yeah, your main priority at that time is just being safe, getting those kids in a safe spot.
Safety of staff and students,
Right.
100%. After that, communication,
Sure.
because people do need to know. And somebody sends a message out on a cell phone, and it's on social media. You know, a bunch of people with questions, and then they're waiting for the school. And but you have to wait. It has to be the safety of the students and the staff first, and as quickly as we can. We know we have a responsibility to communicate, and we do. So by the time the lockdown cleared and we were able to open doors and then start working on messaging, it took, I think, another hour and a half. I don't think the letter got out for another about 1 o'clock. And at that point, we're telling you everything we know and being as accurate as we can. The Facebook posts, I think we had 4 Facebook posts during the unwinding of the lockdown. So Facebook is a fair place because we can do that from a phone. We don't have to be in group and using some of the more advanced communication systems.
And so the way that these people put out these threats, my question again, it would be, they did it at such a mass level, but that doesn't mean it's any less, because that could be like a ploy to go, you don't know which school we're actually going to hit. So that's why you were extra careful of not to release it right away.
Right, yeah. When we hear that we're in lockdown, we assume there's an immediate threat in the building. And when there's no immediate threat in the building, it's on our perimeter. And we have to check our building first. The police officers being there went through, they did a complete thorough check, and then we're paying attention to what's outside of us. Is there a threat outside? And in Tuesday's event, there was a second problem for Reedsport in the lockdown. I'm going to be very careful that we don't get any names, but this was talked about in the letter. A second report was provided through our student body about a family member coming to the school with an AR-15 to get their kid out. During a lockdown situation with police in the building, police on site, a member of the community coming to the school with a weapon is a really bad idea. And when our student body, when one of our students is reporting this to us, now we have to deal with the Douglas County lockdown emergency. That's issue number 1. And our secondary issue is we have a community member reportedly coming to us, and that also takes time to clear. When we get those types of reports, who is the person, where are they at, and we have to verify that that is not a threat. So for us on Tuesday, there was probably an extra 30 minutes longer than the Douglas County need was to clear the second threat before Reedsport was able to completely take its lockdown apart.
Wow.
Very busy day, very chaotic day. So to recap it, the police officers in the building, there was multiple comments. Our staff and our students were spectacular. The lockdown response and the speed with which they did it was phenomenal. The schools train twice a year to be sure they can do this, and they did great. So staff and students, thank you very much. You did wonderful. That's what needs to happen, and that's going to be the kind of response that helps us stay safe. God forbid we ever need to do something like that. The having the agencies be there was lucky. I know I've seen situations where Douglas County and Reedsport respond very quickly when we call them for this stuff. That was effective. The communication worked. Communication is always touchy because it's never fast enough, but it worked, and we got the information out to people as quickly as we could. The administrators in each building having to go door to door to lock it down when knowing that there's a potential danger. Hats off to them and to the officers supporting them. It's a lot. And it just, overall, I'm happy that everybody's safe. I'm happy that there was no incident. A lot of high emotions there, but everybody's safe at the end, and that's always what we want to see.
So how was morale at school afterwards and yesterday? How do you think? And you can't tell everybody's morale, but I mean,
You know, the teachers go back to teaching, and right there they're heroes because they have to be on such an emotional spike themselves.
and they've got to hold it together, don't they?
Yeah, and most students stayed. Some students chose to leave. Some students' families chose to pick them up, and that's perfectly acceptable. Families know what their kids need in those moments, and I think everybody did what they needed to do to take care of themselves. But the teachers being able to push through and keep going, hats off to them, and the students who were there. There's a lot of respect from our students to our law enforcement officers. There was a lot of thank yous and kind of recognizing the severity of the situation and the response that they got. So I think it was a very appreciative climate, and overall everybody's safe, so a good outcome.
Very good outcome. And then moving on to today after that, the students at least get rest today,
Yeah,
right?
well, and the staff are staying home.
Okay, sure.
At 4:50, I was out driving the roads this morning checking, and the pavement was bare, and it was maybe wet from rain, but at 4:50
There's
this morning,
nothing.
I couldn't make a call, and about 20 minutes later, the snow was coming down. There was an inch on the ground, and driving around, and some of the drove out 38, drove out to Gardner, drove out to Winchester Bay, and the road was slippery. Braking was causing the car to slide. Cornering, sliding is like within 20 minutes.
Yeah, I
the
was
conditions
also
changed.
on the road at that time, John, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
I was going 30 and a 55.
Yeah, so because we have staff who come from outside the district, we have students who live on Smith River and out towards Wood Lake and Schofield and Deans Creek and Winchester Bay and in the extreme areas. Even in town, it's slippery, but some of those families having to commute, those buses having to commute, staff having to come from Coos Bay, North Bend, Siuslaw, even Coquille. Their safety, the safety of students, again, safety is number one. We couldn't in good faith run school today. I drove out to Gardner. Gardner looks different than Reedsport does as far as the ice and snow on the ground. So it changes every area. Some folks may not have much from their home, but overall the district needed to kind of do this.
So my question would be, after this melts, and then tonight, John, it's going to get down to about 25 degrees, and that might cause some ice. Where are we at looking at tomorrow for school?
We're watching it closely because what's the freeze going to do? Reedsport's a weird little area. It can stay warmer for some reason. When other areas where we close, we don't always close, but we're going to watch it through the night. We're going to watch it in the morning. We have several people paying attention. We work closely with the buses because they go out and help us drive the routes and tell us what it's like in some of the remote areas. We'll watch it tonight. If we can tell definitely tonight that there's something to do, we'll close tonight. But most likely it'll be a morning call, like we did today, because it was a 4-day week. Because of President's Day Monday. Let's go back to the start of the story here. School is scheduled for Friday the 24th, tomorrow. If there has to be a change, we'll notify people as quickly as we can. It's in our minds that there could be icy conditions. We'll have to kind of wait and see. We'll be out driving the roads early. I was out at 4:50 this morning, making sure it was safe, and within about 25 minutes was able to determine that we weren't going to be able to do it. So we're watching closely. We don't want anybody to put themselves into an unsafe situation with helping kids get back and forth to school, including our staff. So please stay tuned and listen in, and we'll report as quickly as we can with accurate information.
And you'll do that on Facebook usually, correct?
Yeah, and Facebook is one of our sources.
But you have a text that goes, don't you?
We have I call it a robo-dialer. But
that's right.
It does an automated phone call to homes. If you sign up for text messaging, it'll text message to you, and if you sign up for emails, it'll email you. So our families will know however they've signed up. And families, if you made any changes to your contact information, it's always important to give the schools
Oh.
that information. Schools are closed today. It's going to be tricky to get that turned in, but tomorrow, if you've had changes to your contact information, it's really important to give the schools, because of times like this, we'll email you, text you, or call you when there's changes to the to school day.
All right, we'll just wait until we hear.
Yep. Busy week.
I was gonna say, not a busy week for you at all. Not a busy week for anybody. No.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm just glad everything is working out, and thanks to the staff, like you said, and everybody that handled the situation so very well,
Yeah.
and to law enforcement.
Yep. And obviously, today and Tuesday prove that safety is our number one thing, and then we want to educate from there. So be brave.
That's good. All right, John, we will catch up with you next week right here.
Thank you.